Hello, my name is William Scott, and today I'd like to take a brief moment to talk to you about the work I performed as a 2023 Robotics Institute Summer Scholar at CMU. I was a part of the Social Haptics Robotics and Education Lab underneath the guidance of Dr. Melissa Orta Martinez, and my PhD student advisor was Sam Speer. So to understand the overarching concept of this project, which is UI design for equity-oriented STEM-rich making, we have to get a little bit understand of the maker movement that fueled this project. So the maker movement arose around early 2005, 2006, which is classified as the rapid growth of makerspaces across the United States. These makerspaces were specifically focusing on educating K-12 scholars in STEM through hands-on construction of materials and fabrication. And there was a strong emphasis on deconstructing barriers of accessibility to STEM learning. However, current learning systems in these environments do not leverage the knowledge and practices of communities of color or low-income neighborhoods. This is very damaging because we know minority groups possess extensive amounts of unrecognized knowledge, extensive amounts of knowledge that's unrecognized by academia due to the historical feminization of crafting and artistic-based practices. So, our work is we are motivated to integrate the practice of weaving, which we understand is a cultural expression of value, with typical Western math curricula to legitimize the funds of knowledge from these minoritized scholars communities. And to fully contextualize and understand that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background for this project, the design choices that fueled our UI design, and then I'll talk about the results, which you can see highlighted in the center of the poster. So the field of educational robotics comes from the field of programmable tangibles, which actually arose in the mid to late 20th century. And at the time, Papper discussed or argued for a very strong media matters, which discusses how youth engage with these STEM educational pursuits, limits and or expands their creativity with how they build, fabricate, and or learn new concepts. So we internalize this along with the design principles from first generation through fourth generation programmable tangibles to help inform our UI design for the SPEERLoom. The SPEERLoom itself is a robotic loom that was developed within the Shred Lab by Sam Speer to promote equity in STEM education. It does so by one, teaching youth linear algebra, mechanical skills, and weaving principle, and it does this by integrating the practice of weaving, which again is a historical expression of cultural value, with typical Western math curricula. I say that because weaving actually is very inherently consists of linear algebra and set theory concepts that we don't readily acknowledge or see. And by integrating all of these factors into a single UI, we can legitimize the funds of knowledge for minority scholars communities. So very briefly, let me talk to you about the design principles that fueled our choices. So the first design choice, which is selective exposure, this rose from first and second generation programmable tangibles. And essentially the idea states that we want to emphasize or hide specific aspects of our technology to align our overall design with pediological, philosophical, or theoretical commitments. The second design principle that we implemented was a craft-based approach. We understand a craft-based approach is relatively new, and this derives from fourth generation programmable tangibles. And this specifically emphasizes not providing the students with a kit, but rather letting them craft their own materials, as being limited to a kit limits the scope of what they can do and what they can imagine based on the materials inside of the kit. And finally, we root this all in a sect of social educational constructivism. We analyze through this lens because social educational constructivism argues for the importance of the group. And since we are interested in centering these minoritized communities and their experiences in our UI, we have to understand where they're coming from holistically, not just as an individual. And that's why we chose social educational constructivism to inform our design choices. So now let me talk about the design. This design consists of multiple side navs, and it also consists of an interactive weaving drawdown for the students to dynamically change and configure so they can view how their changes affect their final product. And specifically, we decided to highlight two culturally important cloths within this UI so these communities can feel comfortable and recognize their position in these fields as central to the discussion of STEM creating and education. Specifically, the top photo shows a Mayan huipil, which is a traditional dress worn by people in the Mayan community, which is a rectangular cloth that's sewn together and cut out with a head hole and then sewn on the sides and worn for traditional and special occasions. The one below that is the kente cloth, which originates from West African Ghana. And this is also worn by African American students at graduation, specifically collegiate graduations, because it pays homage to the first independent prime minister of independent West African Ghana, who visited President Eisenhower in the White House in 1958. So a big portion of this work was actually legitimizing or centralizing this knowledge into the user interface and converting it into a form that's recognizable in academic community, which is what you see with the drawdowns to the right of these depictions. Similarly, again, we wanted to emphasize the math that is inherent to these structures. So we baked in a new layer to the UI, which we called miniature math mode. Miniature math mode highlights the inherent linear algebra concepts that are apparent to the practice of weaving. If you don't already know, weaving has 3 different matrices and one final product. That one final product is the drawdown, which shows the final pattern. It has the threading matrix, it has the tie-up matrix, which is the small matrix in the top right corner, and then the treadling matrix. I won't get into the details of what all these matrices mean while weaving, but I'll let you know that by multiplying these 3 matrices together, first the treadling with the transpose of the tie-up, and then the threading by that product of the original 2 matrices, we can compute the drawdown or what the final weaving pattern would look like. And this miniature math mode allows users to explore that directly with feedback from the system, allowing to clear their answers. It allows them to, it checks their answers to show and highlight what cells in the matrix multiplication they got wrong and what cells in the matrix multiplication they got right. And this direct clearing and highlighting of their incorrect and correct answers provides a tight feedback loop so they can get more practice with the linear algebra and a better understanding of the material. And all in all, I'd like to take a moment to thank Rachel Bursick, Dr. John Dolan, and Dr. Keely Austin for really supporting not just myself, but the entire risk cohort and successfully living up to the standard of CMU. And I thank you for your time.